On this episode of True Crime Chronicles, they were told it was a place of refuge, but it turned into a house of horrors filled with torture, abuse, and ultimately murder. And later, another story of a home from hell. When two sisters are found dead in an abandoned taxi, a search for the killer leads police directly to the girl's own doorstep.
Welcome to DBL's True Crime Chronicles. I'm Sam Shocker. The House of Prayer for All People opened its doors in 1983 with good intentions as a place for second chances, financial security, and even salvation. By 1992, its doors were permanently closed after accusations of torture and abuse by its co-founder, Anna Young. But it would take more than another 2 decades before even more disturbing truths would be revealed.
The property was off an isolated road that ran through north-central Florida swampland. The House of Prayer for All People was established by Anna Young and her husband Jonah in Micanopy, Florida, a small town tucked between Ocala and Gainesville. Guided by their intense faith and professed desire to help others, the Youngs offered up the home as a place of refuge, especially to women with children looking to get out of a bad situation or a way to get back on their feet.
As people started idolizing or other broken people, people began to look at you as the voice of God.
But the Youngs lived by their own extreme interpretation of the Bible, and they imposed strict rules on those who lived there. Members of the House of Prayer were forced to wear holy clothes, consisting of long robes and beards for the men, and ankle-length robes and head coverings for the women. Mother Anna, as Anna Young came to be known, was not above punishing those who she believed broke her rules or sinned.
They're willing to lay down and take beatings and whippings and starvations and be in boxes and eat cow manure and everything because they love God so much. They just want to be pure and holy.
In November of 1983, 2-year-old Katonia Jackson died at the hospital after being brought there from the House of Prayer while seizing. Anna believed Katonia was possessed by Satan, so she forced the 2-year-old to run in a circle chanting, and if she slowed down or stopped, Anna Young would beat her with a stick. When she grew tired of this, she had others beat the child. 2 years later, her brother John was taken to the hospital with a severe skin infection. His condition prompted an investigation into the wetland compound, but the Youngs were prepared.
When they would go in, they would see a very clean property, a very clean house, very orderly, very organized.
Anna's harsh treatment took a much darker turn after her husband Jonah was crushed to death when his car slipped off a jack in 1988. One of the recipients of this even less forgiving version of Anna Young was Iman Harper, a 2-year-old boy. Iman was subjected to brutal beatings by Anna and was denied any form of sustenance. One day, Joy found him in a closet, dehydrated. She tried to give him water.
His lips were so crusted over that part of his lip, like the crust, touched my finger. Like, I've given him the water. And sometimes, thinking about it, I still feel it. I feel it.
Iman would later be found dead in that same closet. Under Anna's orders, the death was covered up. It would take another 6 years before authorities caught on to Anna.
Miss Anna had trapdoors, secret rooms, so she was able to hide children and to mask the goings-on there.
In 1992, Anna was charged with child abuse after a 12-year-old girl at the house was found in a tub full of chemicals with severe burns. Anna fled the state and spent several years on the run. She was caught in 2001, served time in prison, and was released. That might have been the end of Anna's brushes with the law, if not for an incident some years later, after she criticized her daughter's parenting skills.
I blurted out, "How can you tell me how to raise my kids when you killed 2 children?"
In 2017, Joy went to the police, and Anna would soon learn the price she would pay for crossing her daughter.
As an adult, Joy Fluker finally came to terms with the reality that she grew up not in a safe haven, but in a cult, one led by her mother. By going to the police, she set the stage for the ultimate dismantling of Anna Young's legacy. The story continues right after this. For almost a decade, Anna Young's twisted take on a safe haven preyed on those in need. Now, more than 20 years after closing its doors, Anna's daughter Joy has gone to the police to tell them what really went on inside the House of Prayer.
In 2017, Joy Fluker reveals the sordid history of her mother's group home to Alachua County authorities. Cold case investigators follow up on Joy's claims and eventually find enough evidence to indict Anna Young for the murders of Iman Harper and Katonia Jackson.
If it wouldn't have been for Joy calling and having these memories and telling us about it, this would have gone unnoticed, unpunished.
In February of 2021, Anna pleads no contest to Iman Harper's murder as well as the manslaughter of Katonia Jackson, willfully withholding medication from the toddler, directly resulting in her death. Katonia's now adult brother, John Neal, who was also abused at the House of Prayer, addresses the court.
Katonia was an exceptional little girl. She was beautiful.
As does Joy Fluker.
You can forget or try to forget many mistakes in life, but an innocent human life should never be forgotten.
Young is sentenced to 30 years in prison, but only 42 days into her sentence, in March of 2021, she dies from COVID-19 complications. Jocelyn Howard covered the story extensively for Jacksonville's WTLV and is interviewed immediately following Anna Young's death.
We are joined by First Coast News reporter Jocelyn Howard. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being here. Anna Young was an ex-cult leader who tortured and starved her members. Her daughter Joy witnessed it for years and finally turned her in. I just want to know, how did she work up the courage to finally do that?
Joy was very young, and she grew up just like a lot of these members, idolizing her mom, thinking that her mom was the voice of God. And she even went as far to say that she one day wanted to be like her mom, that matriarch of the House of Prayer. Then she got out into the real world and realized that what she saw was wrong. She saw the terrible things that her mother did, but on the other hand, she loves her mom. She made that very clear in our interview. She does love her mom. Wow. And she was going through that issue in her heart and her body of, do I turn my mom in? This is what really stuck to me in our interview. Her exact words were, "How can you tell me how to raise my kids when you killed 2 children?" Ooh. And that sent chills through my body. And she said, from there, I just needed to call law enforcement.
You just mentioned how you did speak with Joy, and did she ever tell you why she thinks her mother did all this?
Starting the House of Prayer and moving down to Florida was her mother's way of kind of dealing with her sins and trying to redeem herself. And so I don't think really cults always start out as, I'm going to start a cult. Right. It started out with great intentions. The House of Prayer started out as a safe haven for people, especially people who couldn't afford where they lived, couldn't afford food, couldn't afford childcare, and they brought these people onto the property. And it was a really great thing. I mean, they were feeding these people, and at the same time, though, Anna was feeding them the gospel as well. And these people started looking at her as, wow, what a holy woman.
The story spans decades. It's a really long case. Do you think, just in your heart, more victims will come forward?
You never know. You never know. And I mean, I actually have had some people reach out to me about this after my story came out, that weren't necessarily a part of the house of prayer, but they knew Anna before the house of prayer. And they were telling me how she was before the house of prayer. And so, I mean, this wasn't just the house of prayer, you know, this was Anna Young. Maybe some people will come forward, but I think law enforcement has a pretty good grasp right now on who all was there.
I'm fascinated to learn more about this case. If you are too, visit firstcoastnews.com. The story is also the subject of a new podcast episode. Just search True Crime Chronicles on your favorite podcast player. Jocelyn, great job on this story. What a hard story to follow. Thank you for all your work.
Although her mother and the house of prayer may be gone, the truth of all that happened still weighs heavily in the heart and mind of Joy Fluker.
What I'm not going to do, though, is lie about, you know, the lives that were lost during the process of, you know, all of this journey, because I feel like if I live with those, then I'm just as guilty.
Alachua County authorities believe that Anna Young may have been involved in several other disappearances tied to the House of Prayer for All People, and perhaps even the accident that killed her husband. However, with her death comes the very grim reality that any involvement will likely never be known. More of DBL's True Crime Chronicles after this. Welcome back to DBL's True Crime Chronicles. There's no place like home. A line from a movie, sure, but one that's so well known and has passed the test of time because it rings true for so many. Unless you're the daughters of Yaser Saeed, a strict father whose obsessive behavior, violent tendencies, and warped sense of honor were believed to have led him to murder his own flesh and blood.
New Year's Day, 2008. Irving, Texas. Yaser Abdul Saeed takes his two daughters, 18-year-old Amina and 17-year-old Sarah, out to dinner, or so they believe. He drives them in the same car he uses in his job as a taxi driver. Hours later, the girls' lifeless bodies are found, with multiple gunshot wounds, in Yaser's abandoned cab at the Omni Hotel in Irving, Texas. And Yaser Saeed has vanished, along with all of his savings. Patricia Owens was just 15 years old when she met 30-year-old Yaser Saeed, an Egyptian immigrant, at the convenience store where he worked in 1987. At 16, Patricia gave birth to their son, Islam. Amina came along in 1989, followed by Sarah in 1990. The first signs of trouble in the Saeed home came in 1998. Amina and Sarah, then 9 and 8, told their grandmother that their father had sexually abused them. Yaser was indicted in December of 1998. But before he could be tried, the girls recanted. Without their testimony, the case was dropped. These videos made during their teen years show Yaser invading their space and making them feel violated.
This is illegal. Do I videotape you when you're sleeping?
But the recording didn't end there. Yaser obsessively followed his daughters around, spying on them and filming them over the course of their lives.
She smiled to the customers.
Bubba, she has to. Part of her job.
She's in trouble.
Amina and Sarah were forbidden to have boyfriends. But that didn't stop the girls from seeing boys in secret. On Christmas Eve, 2007, Yaser found out Amina had a boyfriend, and he was furious. His daughters told their mother Yaser was waving a gun around, threatening to kill them. Fearing for their safety, Patricia took the girls and fled to Oklahoma. However, only a few days later, the Saeed women returned to Texas. No one knows why. But that decision would cost Sarah and Amina their lives. On January 1st, 2008, Yaser asked his daughters to get into his taxi so he could take them for something to eat. Authorities believe he drove to a secluded spot and followed through on his Christmas Eve threat. Amina was shot twice in the chest. Sarah was shot 9 times, but managed to stay alive long enough to call 911. In the call, she named her father as her killer.
What's going on, ma'am?
I'm dying, that's what's up.
Ruth Trotter, whose son dated Amina, will never forget the first time she heard that call.
You hear her last breath. She was fighting to the very end.
Yaser parks the taxi with his deceased daughters inside at the Omni Hotel and disappears, taking his gun and his life savings with him.
Yaser Saeed is on the run. His wife, his daughters, boyfriends, and their families, as well as anyone who may have helped them, all fear they could be next. The manhunt for Yaser Saeed when DBL's True Crime Chronicles returns. We're back with more of DBL's True Crime Chronicles. On New Year's Day 2008, 17 and 18-year-old Texas teenagers, Sarah and Amina Saeed, went out to dinner with their father, or so they thought. They both were eventually found shot to death in the back of a taxi. With their father, the man Sarah identified as the one who pulled the trigger, nowhere to be found.
What's going on, ma'am?
I'm dying, that's what's up.
Amina and Sarah Saeed are murdered on January 1st, 2008. By January 2nd, a warrant is out for the arrest of their father, 50-year-old Yaser Abdul Saeed, a man who stalked his own daughters and had in the past been accused of sexually abusing them. Authorities believe Saeed may have been carrying out an honor killing for his daughters daring to date boys outside of their Muslim faith.
I think that frustrated him, and he couldn't handle that, and I think that's why he ultimately decided to kill them.
Yaser Saeed empties his bank account and goes on the run. In 2014, Yaser Saeed is placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for unlawful flight and multiple capital murder.
Being at large, 1 year, 2 years, a decade, it was difficult.
A break in the case occurs in 2020 when a maintenance man contacts authorities after coming into contact with a suspicious figure in a home in Justin, Texas, only 30 miles away from the scene of the crime. After following the comings and goings of Yaser's brother Yasin and his son Islam, bringing food and supplies into the house and removing trash to dispose of somewhere else, an FBI SWAT team raids the home and take Yaser into custody.
The FBI SWAT team arrested Yaser Abdul Saeed in Justin, Texas without incident.
His brother and son are also arrested on charges of harboring a known fugitive.
Our most significant priority now, though, is the prosecution for the capital murder of his daughters.
Tanya Yaser from WFAA Dallas reported on the case for years, and at the time of Yaser Saeed's arrest, is extensively interviewed.
We are joined by investigative reporter Tanya Yaser from WFAA in Dallas, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. We know Yaser's brother and son were helping hide him, but who actually spotted him and how was he caught?
Well, according to the court documents, federal agents have actually had his family under surveillance for years. Back in 2017, a maintenance worker actually spotted Yaser Saeed at an apartment rented by his son. He managed to get away, but DNA showed it was in fact Yaser Saeed. And then here more recently, federal authorities had a house under surveillance. It was a house that had been purchased by a relative of Yaser Saeed, and that is ultimately what led to his capture. It really is shocking that he would remain in this area, given that he was on the guy's most wanted list.
Yeah.
That's hiding in plain sight, I guess you would call it. Now, family and friends have described Yaser as being upset that his girls were being too westernized. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that really, in fact, might be an understatement. I spoke to relatives and friends back at the time, shortly after the killings, and they, by all accounts, described how angry he was, the threats he had made. In fact, his wife, the girls, and their boyfriends had actually fled the state. They had gone to Oklahoma. And then for whatever inexplicable reason, a reason that I will never understood, Patricia Saeed returned with the girls. And then within hours, they were dead.
I was just going to say, I don't know why she went back. Anyway, what can we expect next in this case?
He could get the death penalty. Prosecutors have not announced yet what they will do, but it will be very interesting to see whether or not they seek the death penalty in this case.
Wow, that would be fascinating. I'm following. Thank you so much for keeping us up to date on this, Tanya. To learn more about this case, if you're interested, I find it fascinating. You can visit WFAA.com and you can listen to the new podcast episode out now. Just search Capturing Yaser Saeed on your favorite podcast player. Again, Tanya, fantastic work. Thank you so much.
In early 2021, 59-year-old Yaser Saeed, uncle to Amina and Sarah, was convicted of harboring a fugitive and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Islam Saeed, the older sibling of the two victims, pleaded guilty and received a 10-year sentence in federal prison. Yaser Saeed faces the death penalty.
An honor killing is a murder committed by a person seeking to protect what they see as the dignity or honor of their family, with adherence to religious tenets often seen as the motive. Incredibly, the act of killing a person for bringing shame or dishonor to a family or individual is still a viable defense in a number of countries today, and often results in little to no punishment. I'm Sam Shocker for DBL's True Crime Chronicles. Thanks for watching.